If someone had told me gossip moves faster than memos, I would have turned off my phone. The sheets were tangled around us, the dim glow of Greybridge light slipping through the hotel curtains. My breath was still uneven, my skin still humming where her hands had claimed me, like she owned me. And maybe, for one night, she had. She lay beside me, dark hair spilling over the pillows, a satisfied smirk resting on her lips. Even now, in the after, she was composed, like a woman who always got what she wanted. I propped myself on one elbow, letting my fingers drift lazily along her bare shoulder. So, do I at least get a name before I go? She chuckled, low and rich. Leaving so soon? I raised an eyebrow. Are you offering me breakfast in bed? Her smirk deepened. I don't usually do breakfast, of course she didn't. She was exactly the kind of woman who vanished before morning. And maybe that was for the best. I grinned, rolling out of bed, stretching lazily. Then I guess this is goodbye. She watched me, her gaze trailing down my body in a way that made me want to crawl back into bed and forget about the rest of the world. But I had work in the morning, and one-night stands were just that. One night. I leaned down, brushing a kiss against her lips, and then I was gone. At least, that was supposed to be the end of it. The next morning, I walked into my new office, excitement and nerves buzzing under my skin. First day at my dream job. Months of hard work had led to this, finally getting a position at one of the most powerful investment firms in Greybridge. I adjusted my blazer, reminding myself to keep it together. This was my chance. No distractions. Then the elevator doors opened, and I stepped into the conference room. And there she was. Sitting at the head of the table, legs crossed, eyes sharp, power radiating from every inch of her. My stomach dropped. No way. She barely reacted when she saw me. No flicker of recognition, no smirk, nothing. Instead, she simply turned to the rest of the room, her voice smooth and commanding. Good morning, I'm Alexandra Pierce, and as of today, I'll be overseeing all operations in this division. She let the words settle before her gaze finally flickered to mine. No emotion, no acknowledgement, just a slow, knowing smile. I had just slept with my new boss. My pulse pounded in my ears. I had spent the past 12 hours thinking about her. The way her hands had gripped my waist, the sound of her voice in the dark, the way she had made me forget everything except the way she felt against me. And now she was sitting at the head of the table like she owned the entire world. Because she probably did. Alexandra Pierce. The name sent a chill through me. I knew who she was. Everyone did. She was a legend in the finance world, ruthless, brilliant, the kind of woman who built empires and destroyed anyone who got in her way. And last night, I had been in her bed. I forced my expression into something neutral, gripping the folder in my hands like it was the only thing keeping me upright. She hadn't looked at me again, not really. It was almost worse than if she had. And with that, I expect all teams to be prepared for the restructuring plan within the next 2 weeks, Alexandra continued, her tone smooth and authoritative. We're setting new expectations, and I want results. No excuses. A few people around the table shifted uncomfortably. I could barely focus on her words, because my mind kept replaying the way she had whispered my name the night before. One of the senior executives cleared his throat. Miss Pierce, will you be meeting with the department heads individually? Alexandra smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Of course. I like to know exactly who I'm working with. Then, finally, her gaze landed on me. Her lips curled just slightly, the smallest flicker of amusement, like she was enjoying watching me squirm. She knew. I swallowed hard, keeping my expression blank. This was a game, and she was daring me to play. The meeting ended, and people began filing out, murmuring about upcoming deadlines and corporate expectations. I gripped my notepad, moving toward the door as quickly as possible. But of course, I wasn't that lucky. Miss Archer, her voice was like silk and steel. I froze. Slowly, I turned around, schooling my face into polite professionalism. Yes, Miss Pierce? She leaned against the conference table, arms crossed, watching me with undeniable amusement. She was enjoying this. Alexandra studied for a long moment before tilting her head. Welcome to the team. I clenched my jaw. Thank you, a beat of silence. Then she smirked, that smirk. I trust you'll be able to keep your personal life separate from your professional one. My stomach tightened. Oh, she was really going to make me say it, wasn't she? I lifted my chin slightly, matching her gaze. Of course, Miss Pierce, her eyes flickered with something unreadable. Then she smiled. Good, and just like that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, my entire body buzzing with adrenaline. This wasn't just a problem. This was a war. And I had no idea who was going to win. For the rest of the day, I tried to act normal. Professional. Unshaken. But my body still hummed with the memory of Alexandra Pierce's voice. The way she had looked at me across the conference room, like she was waiting for me to crack. Like she wanted me to. I spent the afternoon drowning in emails, reorganizing financial reports, and trying not to think about her. It didn't work. And then, just as I thought I could get through the day without any more damage, a message popped up in my inbox. From Alexandra Pierce. Subject, meeting. 6:30 p.m. My stomach clenched. I clicked on it. Miss Archer, please meet me in my office at the end of the day to discuss your role and expectations moving forward. Short. Direct. Completely impersonal. But I wasn't stupid. This wasn't just about my role. This was about control. By the time I reached Alexandra's office, most people had already left for the day. The entire floor was quiet, the soft hum of city traffic the only sound filling the air. I took a deep breath before knocking. A beat. Then, come in. I pushed the door open. Alexandra was seated behind her massive glass desk, her blazer draped over the back of her chair, the top button of her blouse undone. She barely looked up as I stepped inside. Close the door. I did. She gestured the seat across from her, eyes still on her laptop screen. Sit. I sank into the chair, back straight, fingers gripping my notepad to keep myself from doing something reckless. Alexandra finally looked at me, and God help me, that gaze could kill. Tell me, Miss Archer, she said, tilting her head slightly, how do you feel about rules? My breath caught. That was not what I expected. I hesitated. I follow them when necessary, her lips twitched. Interesting, she stood slowly, walking around the desk. I forced myself to stay still as she perched on the edge of the desk, dangerously close. She looked down at me, her gaze trailing over my face like she was memorizing every flicker of emotion. Because I have very strict rules about workplace relationships, my pulse spiked. I kept my expression unreadable. Good to know, she leaned in slightly, voice lower, too low. No distractions. I swallowed hard. No complications. I nodded stiffly. Understood, she held my gaze for a long moment, her eyes flickering with something dangerous. Then, slowly, she smirked. Good, and just like that, she turned, walking back behind her desk like nothing had happened. She stopped just inches away, her voice dropping. I think about that night more than I should, she murmured, and I think you do, too. I swallowed hard. Alexandra, she reached up, fingers barely grazing my jaw, her touch light as air but heavy as sin. My breath hitched. Her eyes flickered to my lips. I should have stepped back. I should have ended this right here. But instead, I whispered, tell me to leave. She exhaled softly, her fingers tightening just slightly. Then she whispered back, I don't want you to, and then she kissed me. And I was gone. The second her lips touched mine, everything snapped. Every ounce of restraint I had evaporated as if it had never existed at all. I couldn't fight this. I couldn't fight her. Alexandra Pierce was a storm, and I was stupid enough to walk straight into the eye of it. She pulled me closer, her a brief, breathless kiss against mine, like she had been waiting for this just as much as I had, like she wanted to consume me. And I let her. My hands moved on their own, sliding down to her waist, pulling her flush against me, feeling the warmth of her body through the thin fabric of her blouse. Alexandra let out a soft, low moan against my lips, and the sound wrecked me. But then she stopped. Suddenly. She pulled away, breathing hard, her eyes locked onto mine with something between hunger and forced control. My head was spinning. My body was screaming for her to come back. But Alexandra simply ran her tongue over her lips, studying my face with that damn unreadable expression. For a long, heavy moment, neither of us spoke. Then, finally, she exhaled, her voice low and sharp. This is a mistake. My stomach twisted. A mistake. I clenched my jaw, trying to mask the sting of those words. Then why did you kiss me? Alexandra's gaze darkened. Because you let me. The air between us was too thick, too dangerous. I took a slow, shaky breath. What happens now? Alexandra straightened, smoothing down her blouse, her expression shifting into something colder, more composed. Now, she said, her voice emotionless, you walk out of here, and we both pretend this never happened. I scoffed. That's not going to work, she smirked, but there was no amusement behind it. It has to, she turned, walking behind her desk as if that was the end of it. As if she could just erase the last 5 minutes. As if she hadn't just set fire to everything. Her fingers tapped against the desk, a silent dismissal. Your freedom. Go, Miss Archer. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $ icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. I should have left. I should have walked out and never looked back. But instead, I leaned forward slightly, gripping the edge of her desk, forcing her to meet my gaze. And then I smirked, slow, deliberate, challenging. You want me, I said quietly, and it's going to drive you insane. Alexandra's breath hitched. But she didn't answer. She just stared at me, her knuckles white against the desk, her jaw clenched. And in that moment, I knew I had her. Alexandra didn't speak. She just stared at me, her expression a perfect mask of indifference. But I could see it. The tension in her shoulders, the way her grip on the desk tightened, the flicker of something dangerous in her eyes. I had her. And she hated it. Finally, she exhaled sharply, straightening. You should leave, Miss Archer. I leaned in just slightly, enough to push her further. You didn't answer me, her jaw clenched. Because it was a ridiculous statement. I smirked. Was it? Silence. For a second, just a fraction of a second, I saw it. Doubt. A crack in that perfect control she always held so tightly. But then it was gone. Alexandra stepped back, adjusting her blouse as if I was nothing more than an inconvenience, a game she refused to play. If you're done wasting my time, she said smoothly, I suggest you leave before you say something you'll regret. My stomach tightened. I should have stopped. I should have backed down, pretended that this wasn't destroying me as much as it was destroying her. But instead, I took one last step forward, closing the space between us. I saw her exhale sharply through her nose, but she didn't move. Tell me you don't think about it, I murmured. Her breath hitched. I tilted my head slightly, lowering my voice. Tell me you don't want me. Alexandra's eyes darkened. Then, before I could blink, she grabbed my wrist and spun me, slamming me against the desk. My breath caught. She leaned down, her face inches from mine, her grip firm but not painful. Her scent wrapped around me, clean, sharp, intoxicating. Her voice dropped to a whisper, dangerous. You think this is a game? My pulse was a mess. I swallowed. Isn't it? Her fingers tightened slightly around my wrist, and I knew I had pushed her too far. Alexandra wasn't playing anymore. She leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. I don't lose. I exhaled shack. Neither do I. Her body was so close to mine that I could feel every shift, every breath. The tension between us was suffocating. Then, just as suddenly as she had grabbed me, she let go. I didn't move. I couldn't. Alexandra straightened, smoothing her hands down her blouse as if nothing had happened. Then she smirked, that smirk. Go back to work, Miss Archer. I forced myself to stand, my legs unsteady, my entire body on fire. I walked to the door, my heart pounding, my fingers shaking. Just as I reached for the handle, she spoke again. Oh, and one more thing. I paused. Alexandra's voice was silken steel. Stay focused. I'd hate to think I was distracting you. I walked out without another word. And this time, I knew there was no turning back. I barely made it back to my desk without collapsing into my chair. My entire body was still humming, my skin burning from where Alexandra had touched me, where she had pinned me against her desk like she was daring me to push her further. I wasn't stupid. I knew what this was. A war. Alexandra Pierce was testing me, toying with me, seeing how much I could take before I either gave in or walked away completely. And the problem? I wasn't walking away. For the rest of the week, Alexandra acted like nothing had happened. Meetings, reports, deadlines. She was professional, sharp, and distant. Like she hadn't kissed me. Like she hadn't whispered in my ear. Like she hadn't slammed me against her desk just to remind me who was in control. It drove me insane. And I knew it was deliberate. She wanted me restless, distracted, waiting. And it was working. By Friday, I was done playing along. It was almost 7 p.m., and most people had already left for the weekend. I was still at my desk, pretending to work, waiting for her to leave her office. When I saw the light still on through the glass walls, I didn't hesitate. Enough was enough. That I knocked once before stepping inside. My pulse stuttered despite the fact that my body was already on fire. Alexandra was behind her desk, reading something on her screen. She didn't look up. "You're still here," she murmured. "So are you." Finally, she glanced at me, arching a single eyebrow. "Did you need something, Miss Archer?" I closed the door behind me. "Yeah. I need you to stop playing with me." Her lips twitched. "Oh? And what exactly do you think I'm playing at?" I clenched my jaw. "You know exactly what I mean." Alexandra exhaled softly, as if she was bored, but I saw it. The flicker of something darker in her gaze. I took a slow step closer. "You kiss me," another step. "You touch me," another. "Then you pretend it didn't happen." I was standing in front of her desk now, close enough that I could see her chest rise slightly with her breath. I braced my hands against the polished wood, leaning in, challenging her. "I think you're scared," I whispered. Alexandra laughed. She stood slowly, moving around the desk until she was right in front of me. And then she leaned in, so close that our lips almost brushed. "I don't get scared, darling," she murmured. "But you." Her fingers ghosted over my wrist, barely touching, just enough to make me shiver. "You look like you're about to lose control." My breath caught. Because she was right. Her lips were right there. Her hands were close enough to grab me, to take what we both knew she wanted. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped back, just enough to drive me insane. She tipped a smirk. "Go home, Miss Archer," she said, smooth as silk, turning back to her desk like I wasn't standing there about to lose my mind. I should have left. I should have walked out. Instead, I caught her wrist. Alexandra went still. Slowly, she faced me again, expression carefully blank. My fingers were still around her pulse. "Stop running," I whispered. Something flickered in her eyes. Then she shattered the distance. Her hands were on me in a heartbeat, dragging me in, her mouth on mine like she'd been starving for it. I gasped against her, threading my fingers into her hair, pulling her closer, closer, closer. She drove me back until the desk caught me, her grip tight and unapologetically possessive, like she was staking a claim. This wasn't gentle. This wasn't measured. This was war. And neither of us was retreating. The instant Alexandra's lips crashed into mine, I knew there'd never been another ending. Every stare that lasted too long, every dare disguised as civility, every line we'd towed and refused to cross, it had all led here. And now we were both going over. She kissed me like she meant to ruin me, like she needed this as badly as I did. Maybe she did. Her hands skimmed down my waist, gripping, commanding, pressing me harder into the edge as if she could wring surrender out of me. I wasn't surrendering that easily. I wound my fingers in her hair and tugged. She groaned into my mouth, low, wrecked, devastating, sending heat rippling through me. "You've been waiting for this," I breathed against her lips. Her breath hitched. Then she bit, just enough to spark a sharp, electric shock through my whole body. I gasped. She smiled against my skin, smug. "You talk too much," she murmured, voice dark and frayed at the edges. I grinned, trailing my fingers down her back, nails grazing just enough to make her shiver. "And you like it?" Her hands tightened on my hips, and then she lifted me onto the desk. I barely had time to think before she was on me again, mouth hot, insistent. Palms sliding over my thighs, fingers coaxing, taking. My head tipped back, breath breaking in ragged pulls as she mapped my jaw, my throat, like she was memorizing me, claiming every inch she could reach. A sharp knock. We went still. Our breathing filled the silence, heavy, uneven. Then a voice, "Miss Pierce?" One of the executives. Alexandra shut her eyes, exhaled hard, rested her forehead against my shoulder for the briefest beat, then pulled away. In an instant she was smoothing her blouse, composure snapping back into place like armor. My pulse thundered. My skin still burned. She glanced at me, eyes dark, wild, impossible to read, then turned and walked to the door. She didn't look back. She just opened it and stepped out like she hadn't just wrecked me against her desk. Like we hadn't crossed the line we swore we wouldn't. And now there was no uncrossing it. For the next 3 days, Alexandra avoided me. No flicked glances across conference tables, no assignments disguised as power plays, no locked doors or muttered dares. Nothing. She pulled all the way back, and it made me feral. I wasn't stupid. I knew she was trying to erase that night by starving it of air. Pretend long enough and maybe it disappears. Except it had already rewritten everything. By Thursday night, I was done. Her routine was predictable: late at the office, then a driver up to the penthouse. So I waited. When she finally stepped out of the building, I was leaning against her car. She stopped mid-stride. Her face didn't change, calm, unreadable, indifferent, but her hands curled into fists for a single, telling second. She wasn't as in control as she wanted me to believe. "Miss Archer," she said, perfectly smooth. "Are you stalking me?" I smirked. "Would that bother you?" Her jaw tightened. "What do you want?" I stepped closer, letting the silence stretch between us, Graybridge buzzing faintly in the background. Then, softly, I said, "You." Her breath hitched. For a second, just a second, I thought she might crack. Might grab me, kiss me, let herself lose control again. But instead, she shook her head, exhaling sharply. "This was a mistake," she whispered. My chest tightened. "Then why haven't you fired me?" Silence. Then, the smallest flicker of something in her eyes. Fear. Not of me. Of this. Of what she was feeling. I reached for her hand, softly, carefully. She didn't pull away. "Alexandra," I murmured, dropping the pretense, dropping everything. "Tell me you don't want me, and I'll walk away." Her lips parted. Her pulse pounded against my fingers. She hesitated. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, "I can't." I exhaled. And then she kissed me. Not like before. Not out of frustration or power or control. This time, it was real. Soft. Slow. A surrender we had both been avoiding for too long. And in that moment, I knew. Alexandra Pierce was done running. And so was I.